Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Cheeky Journals. If you are new here, I'm Tracy and today I'm putting together my December daily junk journal. I'm starting off with creating the cover of my journal, and for this I'm using some Kaisercraft scrapbook paper, brown card and some Tom Holtz fabric. The plan is to use the scrapbook paper for the inside and the fabric will be the outside of my cover. The brown card, I'm planning to put it between the two layers to just make it sturdy, but I still want the cover to be bendable and floppy because that's something that I really enjoy about soft cover journals. I'm using a combination of glue and double-sided tape to adhere this card to my scrapbook paper. But I really need to open up another glue since this one's been running out for a while now, but I'm really trying to use every single drop. Instead of cutting everything to size and then struggling to line the two papers up, I've decided to first stick them together and then cut the cover to my chosen size. I just find that that's going to be easier. I am using a clamp to hold the paper on my cutting mat to make sure nothing moves, and I'm cutting the length of my cover first, which I am doing at 21 centimeters, and then the width is going to be at 26 centimeters. This is the same size as my moleskin journal and I really love working in this size. It also makes it easier when I store everything together. Here you can see the fabric very nicely, and isn't it just lovely? When I saw it, I just knew that I want that to be the cover of this year's journal. And here you can see me just folding the cover before adding the fabric to help the fabric go over the cover smoothly. I don't want the fabric to be too loose, but also not too taut, as that will cause the cover to just pull up. It was quite tricky to decide which part I would like to use and what part will be at the front and at the back, but I think generally you just can't go wrong with this. I'm cutting the fabric slightly larger than the cover itself, and when I add the glue to the cover, I'm going to be doing it in layers. I'm constantly rubbing my hand over those bits just to ensure that the glue has taken. At the same time, I'm getting rid of any air bubbles that might have formed. And I continue this with the whole cover, just doing it in smaller sections. I'm now going to cut off the excess fabric. You can cut it as close to the cover as you prefer, or you could leave a bit of overhang. It just all depends on you. And I have just left a tiny bit of overhang, but I've gone pretty close to the card. And those little scrap pieces of fabric that I've put to the side, I'm going to use it later to decorate my journal a bit more. Here is a close-up of what it looks like so far. I want to put it through the sewing machine, but I can't quite decide which color thread I would like to use. Putting it through the machine is totally optional. You don't have to do this step. And I ended up doing a normal straight stitch with the navy thread, and then I'm going to go back in again and I'm going to use the white thread, but instead of doing another straight stitch, I'm going to be doing a zigzag stitch. This is my favorite part of the process, to put things through the sewing machine. And who would have guessed, because growing up I was never really interested in learning how to sew. But we definitely evolve and our viewpoints change throughout life, which I suppose is a good thing. And here's a close-up. I really like how it turned out. I might have actually just swapped those two over and do the navy as the zigzag, because I really like that color with the cover. I'm now going to pick out some pages that I want to use in the inside of my journal. It's a combination of graph, tea stain paper, a doily. I'm using some book pages and also vintage music paper. And then I'm going to use loads of scrapbook paper from the Crafter's Choice paper pad. I'm going to be using my paper cutter to just cut all of these pages to size. So I'm sticking with the 21 centimeters in length, and I'm doing all of the papers that size, and then when I'm done I'll go back in and cut the width at 26 centimeters. You don't have to stick by these measurements. You can cut some pages shorter, or you can keep others longer and you can make fold out pages. So it just all depends what you would like to do. I think in this batch most of them I've cut to size, except one or two. I think I left one slightly longer so that I can create a tuck spot later on, and this one I've cut a bit shorter, and I ended up only using one of these papers, although I really like the design on it. With last year's junk journal I went with a blue theme, and this year I'm sticking very much to those traditional colors, and I want to give it a very vintage feel. So for that reason, I've decided that I'm going to coffee and tea stain most of my pages. Some of it's already been done, but the scrapbook paper, I thought that definitely needs to go. So I'm just dipping it in the solution, and then I'm going to place all the papers on a baking tray, and I'm going to pop it into the oven on a low temperature, and I'm just going to keep my eye on it. The top pages dry quicker than the ones in the middle, so I'll remove the pages from the top that are dry just to speed up the process, or change the order of the pages throughout the baking process. The next step is to fold the pages and place them in similar piles. I've made a pile of special papers like doilies, book and music pages. The next pile is blank and graph pages. And my last pile will contain all my scrapbook papers. Last minute, I remembered that I actually want to use a sewing pattern in my journal. I want to create a pocket page out of it. So I'm just going to get all the edges straight, and then I'm going to trim it to the size that I would like it to be, and just to make sure that it fits into my journal. Next, I'm going to start creating the signature, and I'm just grabbing random pages. There's no right or wrong way, I'm just going for it. And when I'm done with this process, I'm just going to go through the whole book to make sure that I like the order. If there is something that doesn't work for me or I don't like it, this will be the time to change it. I'm just checking to see if it will fit in my journal and how much overhang I've got. So at this stage you have two options. You can trim it now or bind your book and then trim it. I personally prefer to first trim, and the reason for this is in case I want to add pockets and put it through my sewing machine, it's easier to do it now. And for that, you'll need the pages to be the correct size. Otherwise, if you trim after you've added the pockets, you risk cutting into a part of your pocket, and trust me, you'll only make this mistake once. I'm using clamps and paper clips to keep the pages securely in the cover. And then I'm going to be using a ruler to mark the spots where I would like the holes to go. You can eyeball it too. I'm planning to use a pamphlet stitch, and I'm marking a hole in the middle and then one on either side of that. I'm using an awl to create the holes, and when I do this, I like to close up the book to make sure it's going through the spine, and that's also just something that's easier for me to do. So instead of binding the book, I have realized that I actually want to change up the middle page. Instead of having that envelope, I want to make a pocket out of this dictionary page. This page has a lot of Christmas definitions on, which I really liked. So I've just cut it to my chosen size, and I've used a scallop punch to create that bit there at the top. And then I want to line it with this beautiful scrapbook paper, so when it's closed up, you'll just see the scrapbook paper peeking through. Binding this journal on camera was harder than I imagined. I tried to show you as much as I could, but my hand got in the way, and I always close my book a bit to make sure I go through the holes that I've created and not to make new ones. I'm going through the middle hole first, and I'm just making sure that I'm leaving a bit of thread there at the back and not pulling all of it through. Next, I'm going through the bottom hole. This doesn't really matter. You can go through the top hole first, but I've just chosen to go through the bottom one. And then I'm going back through the middle hole, and I'm just making sure that I'm going through the string too, as I want that as my closure. And I'm just pulling tightly at the back there and on the front, just to make sure that everything is secure, and you don't want it not to be too loose, because then your pages will just be falling out. Just pulling it through the top hole, and then just pulling everything tightly, and I'm going to be ending it off with a double knot. At this stage, I'm just going to go through the journal and make sure that all the pages have been sewn in and that I like the look of it. After doing this, I'm going to just trim the thread on the inside of the journal, and that's the step that I can start closing up this pocket and just hide that bit there in the middle. I've added this Tim Holtz charm to the string, and I've just done a little loop through it to make sure that it doesn't move up and down the string. I'm closing up this closure, and I'm just going to trim it because I don't want it to be too long. Next, I'm moving on to creating some pockets and tuck spots for the inside of the cover of my journal, and I'm using this leftover fabric that I've got. And I'm creating a bit of a patchwork here on this brown card. I'm going to trim the excess fabric, and I'm just going to add this bit to the back cover. I'm using some baking paper to create a pocket here in the front, and I'm just measuring it to see how big I should cut it. I have put both of these through the sewing machine, and I'm going to add the baking paper to the front part of the inside cover, and I'm going to use some fabric glue. Now, when you add this fabric glue, you're going to see it popping through, but as soon as it starts drying, it becomes clear. I'm using some leftover fabric, and I'm also going to be grabbing some Tim Holtz ephemera pieces, and I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do here. I know that I want to create a cluster at the bottom just to decorate the pocket. I'm popping some baking paper in there just to wait for everything to dry. I don't want the pages to stick together. And with this bit, I'm going to create a tuck spot. And I'm just planning to tuck a little booklet in there that I can use for keeping notes if I've missed a day or two, wish list, Christmas shopping that I need to do. And for this booklet, I've just cut some tea stain pages to a size that I like, and I've added some book page there at the top. I have popped that through the sewing machine, and that's what it looks like. I think it is way too cute. And then I'm using more of the Tim Holtz die cut pieces and fabric to decorate this booklet with. I made a booklet last year too, and it really was so helpful. I put it to good use, and that's why I've decided to do it again this year. I'm not planning to over decorate this journal at this stage. I prefer doing it day by day as I'm journaling to see where I might need tuck spots or pockets or what I want to do on that day. So I'm just going through the journal at this stage and closing up a few bits and pieces here and there just to get the foundation pages going. Lastly, I'm going to be adding some tabs. I'm using a combination of fabric, lace, and also some Christmas ribbon. I've also got some measurement ribbon that I'm using. It might not really be Christmas related, but I really like it and it just gives that vintage feel to it. So I'm just cutting some pieces to size and then I'm just placing it throughout the journal, closing up the journal constantly to see how far it sticks out, how it looks, where I need more tabs, and I'm just putting a few here and there, not overdoing it in case I want to add some more later on. So if you are not familiar with December Daily, it was originally created by Ali Edwards as a mini album project that documents the 25 days leading up to Christmas. But over time, it's evolved and we've all taken this concept and we're molding it to fit our own creative outlet that we enjoy doing. So in my instance, I am going to use a junk journal to document the days of my festive season. And I'm planning to use photos, ephemera that I've bought or that I might have collected over this time period. And I'm also going to put pen to paper to remember the special days to document it. And everybody prefers to do it in their own way, and that's completely fine. Some people are doing prompts lists, others are really writing what they are doing every day, and others are just making albums and inserting photos and decorating it with cute little phrases or bits of memories that they have. Other people love just doing Christmas art in their art journal. So it's all up to you how you would like to interpret and do this project. Let me know if you're joining in this year and what's your plan. Next week's video is going to be a flip through of this journal and I'll show you what supplies I'll be using during December. So subscribe if you have not yet to make sure you don't miss out on that. And thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you all soon. Bye.